Welcome back to another episode of StraitJacket Podcast. I'm your host, Keta Loren, and today I have the honor of introducing our guest, Nick. And Nick has coming up on 7 years in recovery, and he is a professional skateboarder. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Nick. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
Hopefully share a message that'll help some people and have a conversation.
Yeah, that's the whole point, was for the person that's listening to get a glimpse of hope. You know, I think a lot of our stories are like, there's a lot of twists and turns and like WTF moments. And like, I think people think when they're, you know, coming to the end of their run in addiction or struggling with their mental health to such a degree that they don't think their story is the worst story that has ever been, and nobody will understand them. They can't relate to them. And we've all got a lot of similarities. I've done quite a few of these episodes now, and the similarities are staggering. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you grow up?
So I grew up in the East San Francisco Bay Area. It was an abusive household, like with my mother and my father. They ended up splitting up when I was 3, so I was raised by an alcoholic single mother.
Okay.
We were taken away by CPS when we were young because my mom was drinking with us in the car.
Driving.
Yeah, I don't remember any of it, but I learned about it later when we were talking.
Did you go into foster care? Did your grandparents take you?
No, we were in foster care for a little bit, my sister and I.
Okay.
Yeah. But so it was, single mom. She didn't really make any she wasn't able to keep us in line, essentially. Needs weren't being met emotionally, which I found out later in life, and essentially had to raise myself.
Yeah.
So
with the foster care, I grew up in foster care as well. How long were you in foster care?
Not too long. My mom just had to complete, I think it was just AA meetings and some sort of program to be able to get us back.
Okay, so 6 months to a year. Does that sound right?
Something like that.
Okay. And then you went back and lived with your mom.
Correct.
You don't even remember being in foster care.
No, hardly.
But your subconscious remembers sort of things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't underestimate what imprint something like that can make on us, you know? So mom was still struggling in her addiction, alcoholism. Correct. Okay, tell me a little bit about growing up like that.
Well, as I said, there was no rules, basically. And if there was rules, I didn't follow them.
Yeah.
And she would say, hey, you need to stay home. And I'd be like, yeah, fucking right. And I'd walk right out the front door and just go about my day.
Right.
I hung out at the shopping center by my house from a young age, stealing candy and stuff and just doing stuff to try and make me feel good. I think my first run-in with the police, I was 9 or 10 years old. I was stealing Pokemon cards from this little flower shop. And
that's so young. Yeah.
But yeah, I seeked validation from older men. And when I say older men, I mean they were in high school.
Yeah.
And I was still in elementary school. I was going over to the creek by my house with them, and they were sucking on NOS balloons and smoking weed, and they nicknamed me Spliff. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
They were cool.
And they were seeking their approval, and they gave it to you.
Yeah.
And that's I think a common trope with people who don't grow up with their father and a male figure in their home is they look to that outside of the home.
Yeah.
You know, the NOS balloons. Did you partake in that as well?
No, I didn't. I was too scared back then.
Okay, so you started hanging out with these older kids. You know, they were kind of like a brotherhood for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and how did that develop? How did it develop into you growing older? And
so hanging out at the shopping center basically just because I had free reign, and these people would hang out there too because that's where that crowd hung out. And growing up from there, I always found my niche in the people that were doing stuff that other people weren't doing
things they shouldn't have been doing.
Exactly. It was
yeah,
adrenaline almost that I was seeking and just trying to feel oh, I'm doing something bad right now. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I think, and also in and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I grew up was like being a bad kid, you know, like it kind of was the thing to do, you know, to get in trouble. It was cool to be punk rock. It was cool to like say F you to your parents. Like it was cool. Like you were just bonding with people your age, you know, you weren't intending to be a menace, but it's just what kids did, you know, like maybe of a certain variety, like kids who grew up the way that we did.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And I don't even think it was teenage angst. I think I was just not having my needs met and like lashing out and trying to get them met in a way, like getting in trouble, me getting like that authority that I didn't have when I actually hated it because I've never had it, but I was truly seeking that on the inside. Does that sound crazy or?
No, no, I think that's really normal. I think that they say if you can't get attention in a good way, you'll get it in a bad way. It's like, please pay attention to me. It's like a cry for help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did your addiction career start?
I was like in 6th grade and I was skateboarding now. And we had this local skate park and I was friends with all the older guys that skated.
Yeah.
And I remember we smoked some weed at the skate park and everything turned into a cartoon. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the coolest thing ever. And I was like getting chased around a skate park. And actually, prior to that, yeah, I think I was like 11. I had like a 14-year-old friend. We drank some gin, and that was the first time I ever drank. And my mom came into my room that night, and I went to go flip my light on, and I guess I fell into the wall, and I was like laughing. And then the next morning, I was hungover in my bathroom throwing up. Little kid, and my mom was sitting there laughing, just like, huh, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, like you shouldn't be doing this. More of like, welcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, the weed was where that started through skateboarding, just because that was what we did. Like skateboarders were like rebels. We had no place to go really, so that's what we found our spots on the streets or like at the skate parks and just get left there all day and just fend for ourselves. It was fun. But yeah, like 7th grade, I got caught with a weed pipe at school and they expelled me. And I went to a continuation school, and the only friend that I made in continuation school used to steal crank from his dad. So here I am in 7th grade, smoking pill dope off of tinfoil, just tweaking balls, and I got a pretty early start in my my drug and alcohol career.
Yeah, that is really early to be, you know, going to the depths of like crank and like, you know, meth in general. Crank, they don't make that anymore. That was some weird yellow powder that
Oh yeah.
it was nasty stuff, you know. So that's where it started. Did it progress systematically? Like, was it like you tried it that once, left it alone, or you tried it that once and like all bets were off and you were off to the races at 12 years old?
Yeah, so in the beginning, all bets were off.
Okay.
I got put on ankle monitor. I was still doing drugs while I was on ankle monitor, getting taken to juvenile hall. I can recall like the counselors in juvenile hall being like, "Hey, does your mom have a meth lab in the house? Like, what's going on?" And like, no, my mom wasn't a drug addict. Like, I was just hanging out with the wrong crowd, doing the wrong things. So I thought, this was still in the Bay Area. And then when I got taken off of ankle monitor, my mother moved us down to Southern California.
Okay.
To get a new start, a little geographic action.
Yeah, we all do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened then?
So I took a little break from that, and turns out
involuntary break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my next door neighbor was my age, and he smoked weed, and his dad had the chill pad, and my mom was like that too. Like, she allowed us to smoke weed at home, whatever, because she'd rather have us do it there than get in trouble on the streets, is what she said. So it wasn't really that progressive, like, at that point. Like,
Okay.
I was experimenting, you know, like doing like different drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, pills, and it wasn't like a problem yet. I was just having fun. Whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like,
Yeah.
it was fun while it lasted.
It's fun till it's not. And I say that I think I've said that on every episode because everybody starts out with that. Like, I was just having fun and then something happens. What was that something?
Well, I would have to say, so senior year of high school, I was, partying a lot. I was doing, what was it, independent study. But my mom, she became disabled and lost her job. So we were living in her car my senior year, like out in front of Vaughn's where she was working. And that like started like a dark path for me, essentially, where I was just in survival mode. Like I had to survive. But if you look back on my childhood, me going and stealing candy and doing this stuff too, back then I was in survival mode too. But I think it really like took off like when I was close to being an adult and just knowing like, hey, nobody's out there for me. Like I'm going to have to do this myself.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I didn't have a father to teach me how to be a man. So what did I do? I learned how to survive on the streets. And what that required was, doing some dirt, doing some things that, I'm not proud of.
Yeah. Doing things that are illegal and morally corrupt,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're living in your car. Your mom is living in her car. And I'm sure like there must have been some sense of like, holy crap, like this is the only person that I have. And like, even she's not doing like, like life's kicking her ass and she's doing the right thing. It's just by chance that somebody becomes disabled. How did she become disabled?
She had like carpal tunnel, like really bad in her hands. And so when she was using her hands, they were like swelling up like balloons. So she couldn't use them. And she ended up having to go out of work, and then her disability ran out. And then she's like, well, here we go.
Yeah. It happens really quickly. I don't think people realize that life can throw some curves sometimes that land you in some really sensitive and vulnerable spaces. So you're living with your car at Vaughn's. Your mom's working at the Vaughn's. You're taking it upon yourself to like try to figure out how to be a man, and you're in survival mode. What happens next?
What happens next? So I would seek what some people call hostages, or women that like would take me in or like care for me. And I ended up having a baby at 19. And I was definitely, I thought I was ready.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't planned by any means at all. And that kind of changed my life right there. Like I took a step back and I'm like, okay. And I was working. We were living off of, my paycheck as well as like state benefits.
Yeah.
Where like my son and his mother, and we took my mom in because she was homeless, and we were living in hotels.
Yeah.
Just hotel hopping until that finances ran out. Then my son and his mom went to her parents' house, and my mom went to the Salvation Army. And then I went to Northern California to try and be in the electrical union. I was living with my grandpa. And when I went back up north, I met up with my old friends.
Yeah.
And I was eating ecstasy every day and like listening to Mac Dre and thinking I was like something I wasn't.
Right.
But eventually, like I found this program. It was called like Greater Richmond Interfaith Program, and it was something that they allowed families to try and get their stuff together and get a life. So I had my son and his mom come up to Northern California, and we joined this program. And while we're there, I'm like, trying to find work, and eventually, and this is in like Richmond, California, which is like insane ghetto.
Yeah.
Like crazy. And my son and her ended up getting really sick, and we went to the hospital, and they piss tested my kid's mom and found out that she was pregnant. And we were separated for 5 months. So I'm like, okay, like maybe this is my kid, maybe it's not. And then I did what men should not do, which is go through their woman's phone. And I went.
I don't know if my girl was pregnant and I wasn't around her, I'd probably go through her phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But go ahead.
I saw that she was texting her sister that she hated, and I looked through the messages, and it was like from another man saying like, "Baby, I'm gonna take care of you and the baby," and blah 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 blah, and like I confronted her about it, and I lost my shit, and I got 5150'd, and they didn't like I didn't lose my shit on her, like I just lost it.
Walk me through what that means.
My brain was just running like in circles of I'm not good enough, like why am I here on this earth, like I was in a very dark place, and fortunately when I got 5150 they didn't keep me, they just put me on medication and released me. And so
would you consider that like a mental break?
Yeah, but it was only for a night.
Okay.
But the next day I came back to the program, and my son's mother said, "Hey, I need you to drop us off at the train station." And so I did. I dropped him off at the train station, and then I left the program, and I selfishly used my kid's mom taking away my son as a reason for me to progressively get loaded.
Yeah.
So here I am living in the streets of the East Bay, like
gnarly streets to be living on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was like spanging, like panhandling, so I could get like one pill of ecstasy like a day.
You were doing ecstasy only?
Yeah, I'd smoke weed too.
Okay.
But it was like the ecstasy would like make me feel happy. And then finally I was so alone, and I reached out to my mom, and she allowed me to come back to Southern California. She was actually living in a hotel right around the corner with her husband with her boyfriend, and they let me stay on their couch. And the withdrawals from ecstasy are insane.
Well, because it has so many different things in it. So it's like you're not just getting MDMA, you're getting meth, heroin, whatever it's mixed with. It's a concoction.
Yeah.
You never know which concoction you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while that's happening, I'm in contact with my son's mother again, seeing my son. And then she's pregnant, and her new man, he was like this big dog in a Sereno gang down here in San Clemente, and like had X3 on the back of his head, and like, tattoos on his face, and he wasn't a friendly person, and he threatened me with violence, with death, telling me that if I come around, like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And so selfishly, I took a step back, and I was like, fine, my life isn't worth that. But then again, here I am playing the victim and using that to justify the whole fact of me getting loaded.
Yeah.
And continuous cycle of just, it was super progressive at this point. And like,
how so?
Well, it started off with like, just drinking again and just partying, thinking like I'm having fun, like trying to mask how it is that I'm feeling internally.
Yeah.
And then the drugs came in again, and then I couldn't keep jobs. I would be so hungover that I wouldn't go to work, or I would show up to work drunk and get fired, or and then I was homeless again, like just couch hopping or sleeping outside at the skate park. And at this time, actually, like I was like, making it in skateboarding.
Yeah.
And like people would never believe like what I was doing unless they like looked at my eyes after like a bender and they saw it, or they were all black or something. But
saucers.
Yeah, exactly. It was not good. And so yeah, I'm like I'm about to start traveling the world, skateboarding in contests, like living my dream. Like I wanted to be a pro skater when I was a little kid, and
here it is on a platter.
And so funny thing is like I had tried to get sober before, and there was one point where I was sober for 3 weeks. And then
which is a long time for an addict.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine came into town, and I was like, oh well, I can just have one beer with him. And then that turned into like the 6-year beer of just partying again. And so back to the skateboarding thing is like I was up in San Jose at a contest, and this is my time. Like, I'm supposed to be representing companies. I got flown up here.
Got sponsors.
Exactly.
Like, there's a lot riding on it. There's people investing in you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, I'm showing face for companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, hey, like, I'm gonna go out to the bar with a friend and just have one drink.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, it's 3 a.m. and we're doing cocaine in the hotel room, and I ended up sleeping past practice and barely making it to my heat, and I'm still drunk.
Yeah.
And I skated like shit. I looked like shit. And after that, my sponsors stopped sending me stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I had basically ruined my childhood dreams with my addiction.
Yeah.
And that was a really dark time in my life. And that is when everything went like downhill.
Because you don't see a way forward.
No. Yeah. It was all down. So I was having alcohol withdrawals like nightly or during the day. I was like having small seizures. So like when I got sober before, they had prescribed me Ativan.
Yeah.
Which is like a benzo, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I can get benzos on the streets, so I'm going to stop drinking by taking Xanax.
Yeah.
Little do I know, I'm taking pressed Xanax.
Mm-hmm.
So
was it fentanyl?
I don't know what was in it,
Okay.
but I was definitely strung out. So I was drinking during the day. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, like my heart pounding out of my chest and like convulsing a little bit, and I'd take a piece of Xanax.
Yeah.
And then my drinking got so much more worse that I was just getting so drunk that I was like, okay, I want to keep drinking, so I'm going to start doing, cocaine
logically
to keep going.
Logic.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, exactly. And then I could drink more. And then here I am trying to go to sleep, and I can't sleep because I'm all high on cocaine.
So you take a Xanax.
So I take a Xanax.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, I had a friend of mine that died from the exact same concoction. So,
yeah, it's a death cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here I am. I'm terrified.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop. Like, I want to stop, but I cannot stop.
Was that the first time you realized you couldn't stop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And my best friend that I used to run amok with, his name's Nick.
The Knicks?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we're still best friends. I'm going to be the best man at his wedding. And
amazing.
But we're not at that part yet.
Yeah.
So, I was going out skating with him, and he was sober. He was in recovery. He worked in recovery. And one day we sat down from skating, and I was fucking just so sad. And he's like, dude, are you ready? I'm like, what do you mean, am I ready? He's like, are you ready to stop? You look miserable. And I'm like, dude, I want to, but like, I have this and this and this. He's like, you just keep on making up excuse for yourself. Like, you just have to make that decision. So after that, like, I had like this thought in my brain. I'm like, okay, when am I going to do this? Like, I'm not only going to detox from alcohol, but I'm going to detox from Xanax too. And like, I can die from these. So I don't have insurance. I don't have family that has money for insurance. Like, so I'm trying to figure out how to go to a detox. And I found a detox out in the Moreno Valley, Global Medical Center. And they took me in. And I went in there, and it was crazy because, like, I was wearing, like, an Attic Skate Shop shirt, and, like, this lady that was in there that was a counselor, she's like, she broke, what's it called?
Anonymity.
Anonymity, but there's also, like, when you work in, like, the medical field, you're not allowed to, like, disclose.
HIPAA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, a HIPAA violation. She's
Yeah.
like, do you know this kid named Austin? I'm like, yeah, that's actually my good friend. I used to live with him. She's like, oh, that's my son. And I'm like, oh, that's a small word. And so I ended up kicking in there, and it was not good.
What was that like?
I felt really alone. I felt alone. I started having a lot of feelings again. And apparently, like, I've learned that I was using these drugs and stuff to get rid of these feelings.
Go figure.
Yeah. And so now I'm feeling them again, and
they're the first thing to come back.
Yeah.
They hit like a train. Yeah. Go ahead.
So they wanted me to come up with a plan for me when I left.
Mm-mm.
And previously my friend Nick, so as I said, he worked at a treatment center. He was like, hey, like maybe we can get you scholarshiped and this and that. And I was like, no, I don't want to. Like, I'm going to go home with my girl and I'm just going to do AA and I'm going to do this. So I'm in the rehab. I have 2 days left in there, and all of a sudden, like, I just get this feeling, this like act of something other than myself, whereas in my head, and it's like, you should go to rehab. And so I ended up reaching out to them, and they ended up scholarshiping me, and I ended up going to treatment, leaving my girl and going to treatment. And this treatment center that I was in was very 12-step oriented.
Yeah.
So you had to have a sponsor. You had to work the steps. You had to have sponsees. That was the only way that you were staying. And it was a 6-month program.
Yeah.
And I was fully scholarshiped. I had no money. Like, I got very, very blessed. And I did it, like, as it says in, like, the book, like, with the desperation of a drowning man. Like,
Yeah.
I was going to die.
Yeah.
So I had to do everything that I could to try and stay sober.
Yeah.
Because I was really tired of living that life.
Call that the gift of desperation.
God?
Is it? Is that you?
That's an acronym.
Right.
So, all right. But,
yeah.
so that's where that took me.
Was that your only time in treatment?
Only time. Oh, actually,
Okay.
not my only time in treatment.
Well, your last.
Yes, my last time in drug treatment.
So this is... Okay. Wait, you said that funny. What does that mean?
Well, when I had 5 years sober,
Okay.
I was going through like kind of an identity crisis where my mental health started kicking in. And
you suffer from depression, anxiety.
correct, yes.
Okay.
And I was dating the most wonderful woman in the world. And she pointed out to me that I have lots of trauma that's undealt with. Or undealt with.
Yeah.
And AA isn't going to fix that.
Nope.
So
And I think that's important for any listener, is that they are two separate things, and one may relate to the other, but they have to be treated separately.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, AA gave me a life. Sorry, the 12 steps gave me a life. Any of those 12-step programs will change your life if you work it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
But there was still the problem, which is me.
Yeah.
And these things that I went through in childhood, the things that I had to do while growing up, learning how to not be a survivalist. And so, needless to say, we ended up splitting up because of I couldn't deal with conflict. I was avoidant. I ran away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, is this why every single relationship in my life has ever ended? Is that why my mom didn't like want to like take care of me? Like, and like, so I was losing it. And I ended up finding a treatment center for mental health.
Okay.
And I took 6 weeks off work and went to a treatment center for mental health, where I was, learning coping skills to become more vulnerable, how to deal with my these feelings, because I wear a mask.
Yeah.
I act like I'm happy. I mean, nowadays, like, I'm definitely, been putting in work. But like back then, it was very, very dark, and I was very, very sober.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, like, I'm like, well, I did all this work. Like, I still have sponsees. Like, why am I not fixed?
Yeah.
And
how did you know that you needed to go into treatment? Like, walk me through kind of that experience. Like, give me the raw, unfiltered, like, emotional experience of, this is happening to me, what that is. And then, oh, I need help.
Yeah. So having the attention having it brought to my attention that I have these personality traits, this shadow self, like, inside of me that creates separation from connection with my friends, my family, and loved ones. And not understanding how to attack that and actually work on it made me feel very alone. And I had no idea why I was on this earth, or like why I'm even here. Like, and I was in a very vulnerable state emotionally. I was beaten down.
Yeah.
And so I was scared. For the first time in sobriety, I was defeated again.
What were you scared of?
I was scared of essentially never being understood or even understanding myself. And it is a very, very lonely place to be in.
Absolutely.
And, you know, my friends could be, you know, give me pep talks, whatever. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to hear, but the root problem is inside of me.
Because I don't believe what you're saying anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you complimenting me? No, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. If we don't have that root in ourselves, you know, then it's hard to accept it from other people because you don't really know me. If you did know me, then you would feel differently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you tell me just to love myself. Like, I don't love myself.
Yeah.
Like, I hate who I've become, you know? And these are these feelings that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So I had to go.
So you found a mental health treatment facility.
In sobriety.
That's amazing, though. I think, you know, because it could have been the difference between you relapsing or not. Like, you were given that understanding of yourself, probably from a higher power, you know, of like, oh, there's these things that, you know, I've done everything else. Let me look at this now because I'm prepared to look at this now. And that'll give me the rest of the components. It's like trying to do a math equation, but like something's not inputting right because something's missing, you know? So you put 2 + 2 always equals 47. And you're like, what is going on? Like, where is this extra number coming in? Where's the extra 41? I can't math right now, but you know, like, where's this coming from? And it's from that. Yeah. So you check yourself in, you do the 6 weeks.
Do the 6 weeks.
It's an intensive program.
Yeah.
And what are they doing there?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay. No EDMR or anything?
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I've done EMDR like multiple times back when I was in treatment for drugs and alcohol. And I had great experiences with that. Oh, I'll share a cool experience. So back when I was in treatment for drugs and alcohol, I had an EMDR session, and one of the places that we visited, because they take you on a meditation, right? Essentially, you're going back into your past to try and change the outcome of different things that have transpired. So one for me was me always being alone in my room as a kid and playing with my toys, just by myself, feeling alone. And the outcome that I had changed it to was me running or climbing out the window and escaping. Now, fast forward to this mental health treatment center and having the influence of this really wonderful person in my life, and she had me get to know myself in deeper parts. So when I had this EMDR session, I learned like, hey, like I'm going back to that situation because I changed it to be avoidant. So what did I do? I went back to where I was, you know, in my room playing alone, feeling alone. And instead of going out the window, I went out of my room door and approached my mom and said, hey, like I need love and attention.
I need love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was I got chills thinking about it.
You got to save yourself.
Yeah, essentially.
Got to rescue him. Yeah.
So, yeah. That child's hurt.
Yeah, and it's a really beautiful thing if anybody has the chance to do that. Like, it can be incredibly remarkable, the results that you'll get. I've done it, and, you know, I got a laundry list of traumas as well, and it helped me tremendously. I highly recommend it. It can be gnarly going through it. I think that's what people don't understand. Like, I remember my therapist was like, it's, you know, opening this wound. So you're going to have some negative feelings. You're going to have a lot of emotions, you know, there's going to be a lot going on, but it's going to help you in the long run. And so I was, you know, luckily willing to do it, but people do preface it with a warning, you know. Was that your experience too?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gnarly.
Yeah. It was very, very overwhelming.
Overwhelming is a great word. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The senses, overwhelming all the senses. Because it's like all this stuff that we're trying to hide because it's too big to deal with.
Yeah.
And so then you're like pulling it all out at once. Like they do it one at a time. But like, yeah, you're uncovering all of your skeletons. Like you're digging them up. And like they've been at rest for a while, and I think they like being at rest. They come out wailing and screaming, and so, but the results are what you're after, and the results I think are, worth the journey.
Freedom.
Yeah, mental freedom, emotional freedom, the ability to love and be loved. I found that my hair trigger was much less. Like I would have like these impulses, like the moment that like something touched one of those wounds, it would be off to the races for me. And I couldn't, there was no in between. There was no pause. There was no 5 seconds of reflection. It was just such an automatic reaction. And it gave me a pause in between my trigger and my reaction. And I started noticing it. And I was like, oh, that's weird. What is that? Is that a logical thought? Is that like a decision I can make? Do I get to choose now? So it was really beautiful. So now you have 7 years of recovery, almost, no fronts, coming up on it in July, right?
Correct.
Yeah. What is the most difficult thing you've walked through sober? Would it be that?
No, I would have to say, if I can go back a little bit, when I first got sober, I made amends to my kid's mother.
Okay.
Although I wasn't in the wrong.
Yeah.
But there were some things, sorry. I was in the wrong a little bit, but like the whole majority of the whole thing was like, pretty scandalous.
Yeah.
And through that, I got to meet my son. And he was 10 years old then. And upon dropping off my son from the first time meeting him again, I got to meet his sister. And I took one look at this little girl, and I was like, holy fuck, that's my daughter. So
it was yours the whole time?
It turns out that this little girl was my daughter. And I reached out to their mom, and I was like, hey, like, why didn't you tell me? And she said, well, I didn't know how you would react. And at this time, I'm in full-on 12-step mode, like...
And shock. Sorry.
No, exactly. But I was like, she's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And like, so God wanted me to be a father to 2 kids when I was only prepared for 1. So it was nice.
Holy moly.
So I went from supervised visitation to having them every weekend, Friday to Sunday night. And then I took my son on a camping trip with my fellowship group, stoner skate meeting in LA. Mm-hmm. We do a men's stag every August. So I brought him along for that, and upon coming back to drop him off, his mother and them had all packed their apartment up. And I got there, and she said, hey, like, we're moving to Utah. And I was like, I was presented with a choice right there. And so here we go, like, I pause, right? Yeah. I'm like, what did I say when I made amends to her? I promised her that I wouldn't bring chaos anymore. Yeah. And... so I was presented with a choice. I'm like, hey, like, do I leave these 6 kids, like, with no place to go? Or do I allow them to get out of a 2-bedroom apartment and move to a house where all of them get a place to sleep comfortably? Yeah. So that was probably the hardest decision that I've had to make in sobriety, was allowing them to, without fighting, to go up to Utah and leave. So
how did you walk through that sober?
No, with my higher power for sure, because
hand in hand.
It was a very dark time in sobriety for me too, because
you just got him back. You just found out that your daughter existed, and you're being faced with this reality that they are being taken from you again.
Yeah, this was after like 4 years of like having them all the time.
And when was that?
They moved away in December of 2022.
Okay. And you get to see them often still?
They come and visit a lot.
Okay.
And then I try and make it out there. I'm actually, on May 1st, I'm going to fly up there for my son's last soccer game of the year. So I'm going to go and watch him play soccer and then leave the next day and come back down here so I can go back to work.
Yeah. But like, man, your kid's going to remember that.
Oh yeah. He's like my best friend. I love my daughter too. But yeah, my son is definitely like, we talk every single day.
Good.
He tells me everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to, parent him. But I do have like this relationship with him. It is kind of friendly, which is, I'm grateful to have that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have anything, but he still looks to me for advice, and
Yeah. Yeah, I can
it's
imagine.
beautiful.
I can imagine it's beautiful, you know. And it was selfless of you. And you know, that's what it's about. That's what this teaches us, you know, is how to show up in the best way that you can, and it's not always the best thing for us. You know what I mean? It's like best overall or best thing for me. And addiction is incredibly selfish, and so you have to kind of offset that in sobriety and recovery, and know that like there's a lot of selfless decisions that you're going to have to make, you know? What do you have to say to the person that's listening that's struggling with their mental health? They can't figure it out. They feel alone. Maybe they're struggling with addiction as well, and they don't feel like they have any hope. What do you have to say to them?
It's scary to ask people for help because it's not, in my experience, it's not fun to feel weak. The second that I understood that it's not weak to ask for help, it's actually very strong and courageous to do that when you're so stuck in yourself. Like, you can get free from that, and it's like just voicing your opinion, because it's scary. It's scary to feel like you're different than other people. It's terrifying, and that's why I use drugs and alcohol, was so that way I could fit in, or at least feel like I fit in.
Right.
But yeah, we have to ask for help and like lean on our friends and like try and hear similarities or find similarities from people that, like, I don't know, in meetings and stuff even, you know, like, instead of like focusing on like the differences, as cliche as that sounds.
Cliches are cliche for a reason. I always say that. People are like, oh, it's cliche. And I'm like, it's a cliche for a reason. It's because it was so good that everybody said it, because everybody needed to hear it, you know? So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, in my experience, changing my life started with the 12 steps, like 100%. Like, if I did not do that, I would not be where I'm at today.
Yeah. Do you think that your mental health issues came before addiction or after?
That's a good one. Before. And I didn't know they existed because I started numbing them from a very young age.
I think that's common. I think that's a really common situation where we don't know exactly what's wrong, but something is wrong, and the only way we know how to fix it is to treat it, and we treat it with what we have available to us, and ends up being the wrong thing and ends up being a problem, you know? So I think trauma is the gateway drug.
100%.
And it's been said before, you know, and the more stories I cover, the more I realize, like I said, how similar they are. I mean, they are cookie cutter almost, and like the most incredible stories that you're like, this one can't be told more than once. And it's like, no, there's somebody else out there with the same story, similar, you know, like maybe not exactly, like we all have different shades of things, but yeah, we can always find the similarities. Any last words of hope?
Last words of hope. I've been reading this book. It's called The Shadow Workbook, and it's some very insightful stuff into trauma in your life, and it's a workbook also. And if anybody is, you know, struggling with being vulnerable or understanding what these actions are that they keep on repeating that they hate about themselves and keep shoving it down, but like how to deal with them, it's a very good book to read. And to learn and process these traumas and work through them. It's been helpful for me, in my experience.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for trusting me with your story.
Thank you.
Of course. And that's it for another episode of StraitJacket Podcast. We'll see you next time.